Alright, so in this video, I want to talk to you about how your identity either can propel you forward in whatever it is that you do, whether it's your sports, whether it's your money, whether it's your social life, whatever. Your identity and your self-image is going to be the determining factor in your results. And I've seen it time and time again that people who have the intelligence, who have the competencies in boxing, who know how to be charismatic in a social situation, whatever, but they just actually get destroyed by the psychological components of DK. Now, this is going to be a more in-depth video, okay? I'm not going to make any jump cuts. I'm not going to make any edits, but I'm just going to really share with you what I've learned over the 25 motherfucking years that I've been on this planet so far, in all these different avenues that I've truly gotten to a high level with, and the core component of performance in those levels, which is your identity, your self-image, your self-perception. It really is all the same, okay? Many people place a different word on it. It's a placeholder. It doesn't matter. We're talking about semantics. It's how you view yourself. Because you got to understand that your mind, right, your brain has a subconscious mind, right? And the main part of your brain is obviously your reptile brain, which is just the oldest part of your brain, okay? And that part has, evolved from, thousands and thousands of years ago, back when we were still cavemen, we were still just looking out for our own survival, right? And that is still the strongest and biggest part of your mind today. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm saying this because that part of your mind is still active now, right? It hasn't evolved out of us. And it still has the exact same primary objectives, which are, number one, to survive, and number two, to reproduce, okay? So anything you really do, or any, tendencies of humans and whatnot, can be traced back to those two core primary objectives of your mind. Okay, because if you really link things together here, then you're going to understand why your identity and your self-image is so tied to your level of success. And I'm going to explain that to you in this video, but also how you can overcome it and how you can gradually, step by step, really achieve a new identity. And I'm not talking about no LGBTQ, F, A, B, C. I can name the whole fucking alphabet on that right now, as I probably is as it stands right now. But without jokes, genuinely, how you can actually start shifting that, to be a workable psychological blueprint for the results that you're actually looking for. So what I was saying, guys, is that, when we were cavemen, you were looking out for your survival, right? And basically, if you have a certain self-image, right? Hey, I'm worth this much money, or I'm this good of a boxer, right? I can beat up until this level of person. That's your level of confidence. Or, I am worthy of this level of a girl or woman, okay? Then you're going to be able to be confident and normal and yourself and charismatic or skillful in boxing, whatever, right? Up until that point. When you get above that point, you are going to self-sabotage your way down. Now, when I first heard about this self-sabotage stuff, right, I was just like, guys, that just sounds like a load of self-help bullshit. But honestly, I have seen it in my own life countless times, right? And yes, even in the area of money, you might think like, oh, no, I would never do that. But you will make stupid decisions, okay? Because you got to understand, you guys, that like your decisions at the end of the day come from your feelings. And your feelings, they come from your thoughts. But where do your thoughts come from? Have you ever even asked yourself that? Your thoughts come from, essentially the beliefs that you hold. Okay, because those beliefs create the place that you're coming from before you even think the thought, because that's the lens that you view anything through. Okay, and that's just very important to realize. It's like glasses that you have on, right? If I'm looking outside right now and I'm going to put on some sunglasses, it's going to be like it's night, right? Because it's going to be fucking dark, and it's already low-key dark. But I can also put on some pink light. You get what I mean, right? So it's the glasses, the beliefs are really the glasses that you put on, and then anything that comes in there, that goes through that belief system and that value structure that you have, and then that creates thoughts, right? And then those thoughts are going to give you certain feelings, and now you're making decisions. So I'm telling you, like, even if you think, hey, I'm just running a little drop shipping store, or I'm just advertising, doing Facebook ads, whatever, I'm trading, whatever, I'm not dealing with like, oh, you know, I'm talking to these people and I'm in a high pressure sales environment, so I don't really deal with that self-sabotage. No, it doesn't work like that. Because you really will think that you're making a decision that's good in that moment, and you're rationalizing why, right? And you won't understand that you're actually self-sabotaging, because otherwise it wouldn't really be self-sabotage. You're fooling yourself, right? Because your subconscious is more powerful, so it's going to take over, and it's actually going to make you think those thoughts and then make you confused or do different things. And I'm speaking out of experience, guys. Nobody's above this, right? Because at every level you might encounter this. And then you might decide something like, oh yeah, I'm going to bid on this thing, or I'm going to do that thing. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who does millions and millions of profit in trading. And he said this exact same thing, right? When emotionally he's not there, like he's making the wrong decisions, and it's pushing him back down, okay? And he's fucking getting no results, and then it puts you in a worse mental position, mental emotional position, and now you're toast, essentially, right? So, you know, that's just to make you understand the structure of how this works, right? But that self-sabotage thing is very real, okay? And it happens because, just to tie it back to what I said earlier, that self-sabotage of bringing you that level back down, taking you down a notch, as they say, right? That happens because if you get above what you think you are, that's dangerous, okay? It's just unsafe. It's unfamiliar for your mind. It's just like if you were a caveman and there were like two paths that you could go down. And one path, you knew it was like quite uncomfortable. You had to cross a goddamn river and this and that, you know? You had to go through a bunch of bullshit, get all these leaves out. And this other path looks more promising, like it looks better, but you have never been down there, okay? So you're probably just going to take this path, right? Doesn't that make sense? Because you know you've been down there a lot, you know it's going to be safe, and you're going to survive, even though, like you might fall down a cliff on the other one, even though it looks promising now. So that's actually how your mind works. Your mind would rather go down a path that's familiar and that it knows what it's going to get, right, than something that it doesn't know what to expect and what it's going to get, and it's essentially unfamiliarity. I swear to God, there was once some therapist woman called Virginia Satir or something like that, and she had this quote that the one thing that your mind fears more than like death and physical harm is unfamiliarity. Humans just hate that, okay? And so it's not necessarily like you consciously, but your subconscious mind hates that, okay? And so if you're not familiar with that level of success, or with that level of partner, or with that level of whatever, then you're going to self-sabotage your way back down. And you can think of having done this yourself, right? Because if you think of like, you know, a recent, the easiest example, if you just think back of a time that you were just going out and you talked to a girl, or you talked to a girl in the street, whatever you do, and you just thought that she was out of your league, right? You thought that for whatever reason. You know that you weren't being yourself then, right? You were being self-conscious. You were monitoring your words. You were monitoring your moves. You were thinking of how to act cool and how to be cool. But that's actually the least cool thing you could possibly do, right? That's called self-sabotage, right? You don't think you're worth it, so now you can't act like yourself. It's self-sabotage. So how do we fix that? Well, we need to look at the core and not just the symptoms, right? Because a lot of people, they'll look at symptoms. So for example, right, and I'm just drawing analogies in all these different fields of life. I'm talking about here your dating life. I'm talking about boxing. I'm talking about martial arts. I'm talking about business, right? So as an example, I once reviewed a sparring footage, that I did in Mexico with this pro boxer, and he was, very experienced. And then me and my coach were looking that over, and yes, he was pointing out technical flaws, but then the coach, he's good because he actually told me, look, all these technical flaws, they're just coming out because you're actually not being yourself. I know this is not how you fight, and you were, before I went to spar that guy, I already was telling my coach a couple things about him, like this and that. He said, like, you put that guy on a pedestal before you even entered the ring. Okay, and that's why you weren't yourself. Now, mind you, guys, right? This guy was like a ranked pro boxer, like and he was like 10 kg heavier. So this was like a serious situation as well, right? It wasn't no pushover either. But he did say you didn't go in there mentally as yourself, okay? Because I know how you box. You don't box like that. Okay, so a big part of that even is psychological. Actually, the biggest part. So that's just an example for you. Now, that mental position is where it all starts, okay? Where are you coming from before you even do something or think something? And that's what most people don't realize. It's not just like positive thinking. It's like, where are you thinking from? Where are you coming from? And that's the identity, right? That's the core level. And another word for that is your inner stance, okay? I often call it your mental stance. And mental stance essentially just means you have your physical stance, physical posture, right? If you go to the gym and you want to do a bench press, then if you're going to do that bench press like this or something, right? Like just in a weird fucking way, and your buddy says, hey man, you might want to just turn your shit right around and then press, you're going to be way better off. And then you do it like that and you can press 2, 3, 4 times more, right? Now you're doing this movement and it's already stronger. And then every day you do this movement, now it conditions even more. This becomes your new default, right? And now you automatically do it like this. Goddamn doorbell, fucking idiots. So now you've conditioned this move, and now it's going to be even better, right? Because you've conditioned it in. It's your new subconscious habit. That's the exact same as a mental change, right? You might be stepping into the boxing ring. You might be stepping into the sales meeting, right? You might be, whatever it is, stepping into a social scene. From a certain mental stance that is unworkable for the result that you desire. So the only thing you need to do is make a shift, right? And you do that by bringing your awareness to what identity am I operating from? I'm giving you just some analogies, right? What self-image, what self-perception am I operating from right now? And then shifting that. And you can call that fake it till you make it. It's just stepping into a different place of being before you do. Okay, now that might sound esoteric and just a little bit woo-woo, like being this, that, but it truly is, hey, where are you coming from? Okay, it's not only what are you doing, right? Okay, I'm saying this, I'm doing this. That's a paradigm. It's a more superficial paradigm to operate from. If you truly shift who you underneath that are being and shift that place of where you're coming from, you're going to be much more powerful. Now, you can do that within that moment, but then it still is, right? To an extent, it's a little bit faking it, right? It's a little bit like, hey, I'm putting on the training wheels and I'm coming from a new position, but you haven't necessarily conditioned that in. It's just like this. Okay, now I'm shifting my stance, or I'm, from boxing like this, I'm boxing like this, right? I'm shifting my stance. And then you need to train that so it becomes your new default pattern, right? It becomes your new, that's why boxers, they, drill everything over and over and over again so that it becomes automatic. And then when you're in the fight, you don't have to think about it, okay? But we all understand it when it's about something physical or whatever, because then it's normal, right? But we don't necessarily think about it the same way when it's mental, even though it is, right? You learn something by bringing your awareness to it. Okay, I shouldn't stand in boxing like this. I should stand like this or whatever, right? And then you train that, you drill that over and over again, right? And you bring your awareness. As soon as you do it, okay, you bring it right back. And then when you're in the fight, when it really matters, you don't have to think about it anymore. It's your program. It's your default. It happens automatically. That's the exact same thing as the mental side, right? Because if you think, okay, I'm coming from, right? As soon as you see yourself going into that mode where you're procrastinating mode or whatever, non-focus mode or whatever, right? Then you say, not that, right? You shift that to the side and you choose to shift gears and to come from that identity that is productive, that is focused, etc. And then if you do that consistently for 21 days, for 30 days, right about there, then you're going to have that as your new default pattern, your new conditioned pattern, and you don't really have to think about it anymore, okay? And it goes more automatic, almost fully automatic, right? So that's where you really start, okay? And that really is the simplest way of changing your identity, right? Of changing your self-image. And the key word here is awareness, right? We always, in any change that you create, the first thing you want and you need really is awareness, right? Because without awareness, you don't know what's wrong, right? That's why everybody always has coaches in boxing or whatever, right? You need that extra eyes on you to have that extra awareness to see what you're doing wrong and then fix it from there. I draw a lot of analogies, guys, to the physical things here because that's just going to make you understand it more easily. But that awareness, right, is the key component of that change in the first place. Once you have that awareness, now you know what's wrong. You know what you need to shift, okay? And now you can move in to shifting that. Every time that it comes up, you shift it, right? And you just condition it in just like that. Because your brain is going to want to go back to the default. It will, right? Because that's what we talked about in the first place. Your brain also, you guys, in addition to wanting to survive and reproduce, it also, and that is tied to survival. That's like a micro goal of the survival. It always wants to save time and energy, okay? Mostly energy, wants to save energy. Why? Because when we were cavemen, okay, we literally had limited resources, okay? So you had limited, food, limited water, etc. So you had to actually save your energy so that, when you killed a big ass fucking deer, you could survive on that, but then you weren't expanding all your energy, right? We still have that program running in our brain. And that's not a belief you can get rid of. That's a primal, that's in your DNA, okay? That's so deep. That's in the, literally a reptile brain. That's, the closest to your brainstem. Like, you can't change that, but you can learn how to deal with that by any time that activate that sends thoughts out. Just saying not that, right? And staying on the lane that you need to be. So that will ultimately, I guarantee, change your fucking life. You do not realize how much of life is actually psychological, is actually dealing with that primal, primitive part of your brain, is actually dealing with your subconscious, and is actually dealing with who you believe yourself to be and your self-image. This is the core component of your performance in any area. And this is the 80-20 percentage type thing here. Okay, if you focus on this, it's going to give you like 80% of the results. If you focus on how do I truly view myself, right? And then asking yourself, okay, if I want to achieve my goal of becoming a millionaire or of making, $1 million a month, whatever, how would I have to actually view myself, right? And then start to view yourself as that. And how you can do that with some simple things is just waking up during the day. How would I act? How would I be? Right? What would I do? What would I be thinking? And how would I be feeling if I was doing $1 million a month right now? Okay, if you were doing that right now, then what actions would you be doing right now? Okay, what would you feel? How would you interact with different people? And naturally, that's going to bring you there, and that's going to attract that to you. Because if you go outside and you communicate like you're doing $1 million a month. Obviously, I'm not talking about fucking lying or anything, right? I'm just talking about you are communicating like you are that level of dude. You're going to attract those kinds of opportunities, right? If you speak on video like you're that, right? You're going to attract an audience. If you, with time and work, obviously, right? If you, anything that you really make your focus in that way, if you're truly operating from that identity, it has to happen. Okay, it's energy, it's law of attraction, it's who you are being. Because that's truly the core component of what is going to dictate your life. You often hear people as well talk about raise your standards. And that's the exact same thing. It's raising what you are willing to have happen, right? What you're cool with and what you're not cool with. Your standards are everything, right? What if someone just, as a simple example, right? Let's say that you're walking in the street and some dude just looks at you in an angry way. He's kind of like eyeing you down, the typical fight starter. Is that a standard for you that's breached to where you're going to get into a physical altercation, or is it not? Let's say then that he comes up and that he just slaps you in the face. Is that breaking your standards at that point? It's your standard that is going to dictate the action that you're going to take, right? And by the same token, your house, right? If your house is a fucking mess, it's because that's what your standard truly is, right? If you were a kid, right, and your room was always a mess, and then your parents said, hey, clean your room and this and that, and then you cleaned it once, and then, it took about, and maybe you kept it clean for a couple of days, and then it was a mess again, right? Because that was truly your standard. You didn't actually really care, and it was just not, your identity wasn't something that made it a must to have a clean room. And it might sound like a super stupid and simple example, but those often just get to the point as well. Because if you think about it, right, if you're the type of person that can have a really messy room and just unhygienic shit, then you don't truly see yourself as an adult. You don't truly see yourself, most likely, as a professional, right? Because most people would consider that to be breaching those things, okay? So let's say that you do fall into that category, right? Like, maybe your room's messy, maybe your accounting is messy, whatever. You need to actually start laying out standards, right? So these are also things that I've done myself that were extremely effective for me. Think about it like this, right? Would you ever, if you had a best friend or your brother, right? Would you ever lie to that person? Cold, hard lie, right? Really say that you're going to do something and just don't do it. Something like that, right? You probably wouldn't do that, maybe under extreme circumstances, but you probably would feel extremely bad about it, right? Or, in whatever kind of scenario you want to paint it, that's just an example. So you need to develop that kind of a relationship with yourself. And so some people are religious, right? And that does it for them. So they would never go against their religion, even though I see many, many people, that have a religion, but then they're breaking the rules of that religion all the fucking time. And then they're like, oh, but, this is just my personal opinion, right? It doesn't really make sense to me to subscribe to a religion and then start breaking the rules all the goddamn time. And then just say, oh, but he's all forgiving and this and that, so it's going to work out fine. I'm like, well, you know what I mean? You could make a mistake, but if you're like consciously making mistakes all the time, now you're just breaking the religion, consciously knowing it, and then just expecting to be forgiving at the end of the road. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? But anyways, so I personally wouldn't do that if I would subscribe to a religion. That's why I'm not subscribed to a religion, because I would take it extremely seriously. I wouldn't want to sin at all, basically, right? So anyways, if you can actually, let's say that you're not religious, right? If you can develop sort of a religion, and I'm not talking about divine and God or whatever, I'm just drawing a comparison, so I hope nobody takes this the wrong way, but if you can develop a sort of religion with yourself where you just know and you have a list, maybe just in your mind, maybe you write it out, of like, hey, these are my standards, this is okay for me, and anything less than this is a sin, right? It is just me shaming, sinning, whatever, myself, my family, my future wife, this and that. If you can just develop it to such a serious extent to where like you feel like that about it, then you're going to be having so much leverage to just execute all the time. And you can even do it with a money goal, right? You can say, it is an absolute sin for me to make less than $1 million a month or something like that, right? You can do that. If you really want to make $1 million a month, then that would be effective. Because you would have, if you can get yourself to that mental place, now you truly have an identity at $1 million a month, right? Because you view yourself as that, and anything less than that, it's below your standards. And it's absolutely unacceptable to you. Okay, so that is how you want to handle that. And if you do that, and if you develop that kind of a relationship with yourself, you're going to just keep, and you already know, everybody does, you know what you need to do. You know what is the right thing to do, right? Because there's a voice in your head that's, as people always say, that you have the devil on your shoulder and you have that angel on your shoulder, right? It doesn't actually make any sense because I guess that the devil was a fallen angel. But anyhow, you know what I'm saying. So you can listen to the devil, right? And do whatever, right? And procrastinate and do all the shit. Or you can listen to that other part of yourself, your higher self, and take those right actions, okay? This is the little version of you. That's the big version, the bad motherfucker, okay? In a good sense. And if you listen to that guy more and more often, you're going to become more and more like him, right? And you're going to embody that guy more, right? You're feeding that side of yourself. And so those things are all going to become easier for you. You got to also understand this thing, like anything that you do, once you do it a little bit and like enough, you get into a flow, you get into momentum, okay? It's like people that go into an ice bath. Everybody does this nowadays, this shit, right? People jump into an ice bath and then they jump out within 30 seconds because they think that, hey, it's going to be this feeling for 5 minutes or 3 minutes now. I cannot handle that, right? Because they identify, they resonate, right, with the feel, or they don't resonate, they identify that feeling is going to stay. But the people who go into the ice bath knowing beforehand, right, or just thinking of these principles beforehand of like, okay, it's going to be really bad, but then it's going to go down a bit, right? They can stay much longer, right? Because there's no way you're going to stay in an ice bath if you truly think that it's going to be that bad for the whole width, right, for the whole section. And that concept goes for working out as well, right? It is very bad, and then you kind of get into it, and now it's good, right? It's easy, or it's doable. So the same for working, right? It's very hard to go from the couch, even though I'm sitting on the damn couch right now, to go to your desk or your office and then get to work and this and that. But then once you're doing it, okay, and once you get a couple little wins, you get a couple little things striped off your list of to-dos, it becomes easier, and you're momentum, and you're going, okay? So you want to get into that energy. And then from there, it becomes much easier. It's actually much easier to do a diet than you might think. It's actually much easier to go to the gym than you might think, but most people don't even get to the point where they realize that because they quit before that. Just like the ice bath. If you quit before 30 seconds, you'll never realize that it's much easier after 45 seconds, right? So, guys, that's just a major thing that I can share with you that's just helped me tremendously in my business, in my social life, in boxing. Okay, I take that very seriously as well. And that you can really use to elevate your performance and your results. So think about those standards. Get that list for yourself where you're truly going to hold yourself accountable for it. And if you take it that serious, then it will truly help you. Because if you really think about it, everybody wants to make $1 million a month. Everybody, and I'm talking about 90% of people, whatever, everybody kind of wants that, right? Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants to have a hot chick. Everybody wants to be able to beat others up, this and that. If we're just talking about business right now, everybody that I went to high school with, right? All the boys from the hood, this and that, from the neighborhood, everybody was always talking about, yeah, man, oh, this fucking crib, this, that, right? Millions, blah, blah, blah. Nobody. Actually, one guy from the group that I used to hang out with often, or one of the groups that I hung out with, one guy, he is doing extremely well in life, okay? Crushes it. He kind of wants to, keep it more anonymously, so I won't mention and stuff, but he's crushing it, okay? And I know for sure that he's going to be he's going to be worth hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And he already is worth a lot, okay? Not yet 100 plus, but he's worth a lot. Anyways, so that guy and me, obviously, did something with our lives. But everybody else also was always talking about the same shit. It's not like nobody was ever talking about, oh, we want to do this, we want to do that. But the difference is me and my friend, right? We really wanted it. And those guys, they wanted it, but as soon as you had to do something for it, right? Tomorrow, right? That kind of shit. So they didn't really want it, because really wanting something means you're willing to give something up for it, okay? That's what really wanting something means. And if that's not the case, you don't really want it, okay? The same thing goes with like these fucking people, these fucking guys that date a chick, right? And then they're just, oh, the girl can't make it that night because of this or because of that. Okay, some things like that can happen every once in a blue moon, right? But these guys will just justify and rationalize over like, oh, she's not ready yet. Oh, she has this issue. She has that issue. Bro, she's just not fucking into you, okay? She just doesn't really want you, right? And that's the same concept as what I was just explaining with the success thing. Because from my old friends, I recently, a couple of months ago, figured out, I already knew it from one guy, but then I figured it out from another guy, and actually a third guy, but I didn't really know him as well, but two of like the guys that I was hanging out with every single day, right? Like every other day we was hanging out. They're both in jail for years, right? Literally for international drug trafficking, and the other guy, you know, a bunch of bullshit. Okay, we won't get into it. But in jail for years. These guys I hung out with every day when I was like 14, 15, 16, and then I kind of got out of it. So anyways, it's a whole different life path, right? But anyways, that is identity, guys. It is the core factor. So go ahead and go and start your days with who do you need to be to achieve your goals right now, okay? What is your point B right now? If you're at point A, right, where are you currently? What's your current situation? And what's your point B right now, okay? Where do you want to get to? What's your goal? And then just simply ask yourself, who do I need to be to achieve this easily, okay? Who do I need to be every day, right? Who would I be if I would already have it? What kind of person would I be? And then you need to bring that person to the motherfucking present and live out of that identity each day. It really is that simple, but it requires consistency, and it will manifest that person inside of you, and you will be able to show up like that, stronger, more confident, okay, more consistent, more disciplined, more focused. And then you're going to hold yourself, okay, to your list of sins and, you know, praises, whatever you want to call it, right? The things that you have to do, okay? It's like brushing your fucking teeth, right? The things that you have to do. Like, for example, in the Quran, right? You pray 5 times a day. If you don't do that, you are sinning, right? So, for example, if you don't shoot your video every day, or if you don't, whatever it is that is important for you, that will be a sin, right? Get it to that level. Why not? If it works, do it, okay? Because you want to be productive. You want to be growing continuously. Just cut all the other bullshit out. You don't actually fucking need it, dude. You tell yourself that you need it because maybe when you grew up, your parents, your brothers, whatever, they had it, right? They needed it, like all the relaxation, all this, all that. If you just stay in action, in motion, continuously, you can make it happen, okay? I believe in you. Drop any questions if you have them, okay? Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what is you going to change. What is your new identity? Okay, and then I will see you in the next one. Apply this shit.